other resorts that date from the 19th century, Felixstowe is characterised by what I have behind me, and that is beach huts. You'll find them along almost the whole length of the Felixstowe coastline. For most hut users, they're a little home from home, where they can spend lazy days watching the world go by, as well as having a base to enjoy the beach and seafront. Most people equip their huts with facilities to make a cuppa or even cook lunch, as well as having somewhere to sit in the warm and dry, an essential here, even in the sun trap of the East Coast. Huts are much sought after, and a hut in Felixstowe can cost between £10,000 and £75,000 depending on location. If you think that's a bit steep for what is after all an overgrown garden shed, then huts have sold on Mudderford Spit in Dorset for nearly £500,000. Of course, it's not the hut that gives it the value, but the view and proximity to all the seafront activities. Owners still have to pay East Suffolk Council for their pitch, and in addition there are maintenance fees, as well as annual moving fees for those huts that need to be moved back in the winter. So why is it that traditional resorts like Felixstowe have beach huts? Well, their history goes back some 250 years. The whole phenomenon of seaside resorts began because 18th century doctors started to extol the virtue of sea bathing. It led to the development of large resorts near London in particular, that allowed the wealthy to go and enjoy the health benefits of the coast, and other facilities began to develop around these. These were the days when it was considered unseemly to bathe in the sea in public, and this gave birth to the bathing machine. These were horse-drawn carriages that were reversed into the sea, which allowed the bather to change and descend into the water with maximum privacy. There were usually separate men's and women's areas. Bathing machines even got the royal approval when in 1789 George III took a dip in the sea at Weymouth. Bathing machines also characterised Felixstowe from the earliest days of the resort. This photo was taken around 1880. However, people began thinking that if they could have their own private changing room to bathe from, why not have a private space to enjoy the beach as well? And also, of course, to shelter from the wind and, well, the rain. They began to erect huts similar to fishermen's huts along the coast. Felixstowe was one of the earliest resorts to pioneer what we call beach huts. Many huts were owned by the local hotels for use by their guests, such as here at the Felix Hotel. With changing views regarding public bathing after the First World War, horse-drawn bathing machines died out, people preferring to use the static beach huts as bases for bathing in the sea, as well as somewhere to shelter by the beach. In the era of mass British tourism up until the 1960s, beach huts were a strong feature of the UK seaside resort scene, where beach huts were available for hire by the day or by the week, either from private owners or from the local council. Even the royals once had their own beach hut in Norfolk, which was sadly burnt down by vandals in 2003. The British beach hut even found influence with our neighbours on the near continent. Over the years, the response of the public has been to love beach huts, or to loathe them. To the owners and users, they're a haven of peace, somewhere to rest, somewhere to watch the world go by. Huts appear in a huge variety of colours, overall condition, and sport a number of imaginative names. To others, huts are a blot on the landscape, ruining unspoilt coastline with a rash of nothing more than glorified garden sheds. In some places, there's been pressure over the years to remove huts from areas of high amenity value, or at least tidy them up. We can see evidence of this in Felixstowe, where permanent chalets sprung up as tidier replacements for huts. The council also built terraces into the cliffs in certain places, as they carried out coastal protection work to declutter the landscape. Here's a picture of Cliff Road in Old Felixstowe in the 1920s, and what it looks like at present. The whole idea of rest and leisure has changed radically in the last 100 years. During the 20th century, we saw the advent of paid holidays, the shorter working week, mass tourism and cheap travel that allowed people more time to do what the Americans call R&R, rest and recuperation. Leisure time. People don't usually associate rest and relaxation with religion. There was a time not so many years ago where people associated the Christian faith with people who didn't have a good time and who were only interested in hard work. However, when you look in the Bible, what you find is that God invented rest and relaxation. In the Bible, the people of Israel were told to observe the seventh day in the week as the Sabbath day. It's in the Ten Commandments. Sabbath is the Hebrew word for rest. Whatever else, they needed to keep the day as a rest day. In the Jewish law, the Torah, there are a whole series of measures to rest the land and observe holy days, holidays, when the people would not work but rest and celebrate. In their society, there was no separation between the religious and the civil. Sabbath and holidays found their way into Christian culture and then into secular culture. That's no surprise, as we have the same need to rest. It's a fundamental human need. Apart from requiring daily sleep, we don't function properly if rest isn't part of our lives, and having at least one day off a week is, as far as I can see, a minimum standard. Look at our society, and we find that people often find one source of stress and depression is failure to have adequate R&R. We're fortunate in our country that we've developed two non-work days for most people, Saturday and Sunday. But we all know that in some jobs there's pressure to work 6 or even 7 days and also work long hours. There was another purpose why God commanded a rest day, a Sabbath, and that was to give people time to stop and reflect on who they were and on life and on God, to worship Him, to give Him thanks for the good things in life, to ask His help for the things that weren't so good, and to ask the fundamental question, where's my life going? Because without God, the answer is nowhere. So today's a sunny day, a really nice day for rest and relaxation. If it's your day off, then enjoy your R&R. But remember who invented the whole idea of having a rest. And maybe take some time to think about him. If today's a Sunday, perhaps go along and meet with other people and worship God. Thanks for listening, and may God bless you.